Under the full, pitiless moon, the realm held its breath. Every light in the city was extinguished, every door locked, every heartbeat trembling under the weight of the Alpha King's decree. They said the moon itself had turned its face from his hunger. They said no Omega who entered his court ever came back whole. So when the horns sounded and the royal riders thundered through the villages, people knew what it meant. The hunt of the chosen had begun. If you're listening now, don't forget to subscribe, because this night, the first night of blood and moonlight, will decide who survives and who is claimed forever. The wind carried screams through the sleeping woods. Shadows in black armor tore through the huts, sniffing for scent trails, dragging terrified girls into the open. The soldiers' eyes glowed gold in the dark, the mark of their Alpha's command. Elara Wyn crouched behind a fallen tree, her breath shallow, her palms slick with fear and herbs. Her hands still reeked faintly of rosemary and ash, the mixture she'd created to dull her scent. She had prepared for this night for months, studying the old healer's ways, learning which roots could mask an Omega's call. She told herself she was ready. She told herself she was safe. She was wrong. The ground shook. It was not far, too close. Her heart pounded so hard it hurt. The forest was a cathedral of silence now, and every leaf seemed to lean in to listen. A branch cracked behind her, slow, deliberate. Elara froze. "Found you." The voice was deep, controlled, and in it lived something ancient and dangerous. A gloved hand caught her by the wrist, yanking her to her feet. She twisted, bit, kicked, but the soldier's strength was inhuman. Within seconds, cold metal bit into her wrists. "Unhand me," she hissed, thrashing against the bonds. "Orders from the Alpha King himself," the soldier said. "Every unmated Omega must answer the summons. You hide, you disobey, you bleed." Elara lifted her chin despite the panic clawing at her chest. "Then tell your king I do not belong to him." The soldier smirked. "Tell him yourself." They dragged her through the forest, through the mist that shimmered silver under the moon. The scent of pine and smoke followed them, the distant howls of wolves echoing like a cruel chorus. When the trees broke open, she saw it, the moon court. It was no palace. It was a fortress carved from black stone, glowing faintly with threads of runes that pulsed like veins. Fires burned in iron bowls along the stairs. At the center stood a throne of onyx, and on it, Ronan Vale, the Alpha King. He looked as though the night had shaped him itself. Tall, shoulders carved with power, silver eyes reflecting the moonlight like a mirror. His presence filled the room, quiet, heavy, impossible to ignore. Every Omega brought before him fell silent, trembling under that gaze. But not Elara. When they pushed her to her knees, she looked up and met his eyes without bowing her head. Something flickered there, brief, startled interest, then vanished behind the iron mask of a ruler who feared nothing. The herald's voice boomed through the chamber. "My king, the last of the Omegas from the northern province." Ronan rose from his throne, his steps echoing. "Remove her mask." A soldier reached forward, pulling away the scarf from Elara's face. Her hair fell free, dark, tangled, streaked with forest dust. Her eyes glinted with fury instead of fear. Ronan inhaled, just once, and the air shifted. The scent he'd been hunting all night, wild, forbidden, laced with defiance, bloomed between them. "Name," he demanded. "Elara Wyn." "Do you know why you're here?" "I do," she said, voice steady. "And I won't play your game." The court stirred, whispers fluttered like moth wings. No one spoke to the Alpha King like that. Ronan's jaw tightened, but his gaze didn't waver. He circled her slowly, like a wolf testing the strength of its prey. "You hide your scent. You defied my summons. I saved myself. You think the moon gives you a choice?" She met his stare. "I think the moon chooses who it will, not you." A dangerous silence followed. Then, to everyone's shock, Ronan laughed, a low, dark sound that sent a tremor through the room. He reached out, brushing a strand of hair from her face, his touch deliberate, claiming, unnervingly gentle. "You have fire," he said softly. "Fire burns, little Omega. But it also draws." Elara didn't flinch, though every muscle screamed for her to pull away. "If you want obedience," she said, "you've chosen the wrong one." Ronan leaned closer, his breath warm against her ear. "Oh, I haven't chosen yet. But I will." And when his thumb grazed the pulse in her throat, the mark of the Alpha's power flared to life, an ancient sigil that shimmered faintly before vanishing beneath her skin. The court gasped. The air itself seemed to bow. "She is chosen," he declared. The words were a sentence. Elara's knees nearly buckled, but she forced herself to stand. The guards tried to restrain her, but Ronan raised a hand. "Let her go. The moon knows what it wants." As the doors opened and the crowd murmured, Elara met his gaze one last time. "You may have marked me," she said, "but you'll never own me." Ronan's expression didn't change, but something flickered behind those cold eyes, something dangerously close to admiration. "Then survive the night, Elara Wyn," he murmured. "And perhaps I'll let you prove it." The moon burned high above them, casting its silver light over the mark glowing faintly on her skin, a bond that neither of them had chosen, yet one that would tie their fates in blood and fire. And far beyond the palace walls, in the silent woods, the wind whispered what the people already feared. The Alpha King had found his Omega, and the realm would never be the same again. If you made it this far, remember to subscribe, because surviving one night in the Alpha King's bed is only the beginning. The night after the choosing bled into dawn with no peace. When Elara opened her eyes, she was no longer in the forest, nor in the great hall where Ronan had marked her. She was lying on a bed draped in gold silk that shimmered like sunlight trapped in a web. The room was vast, walls carved with the sigils of wolves and moons, windows open to a pale morning sky. It was beautiful, and it was a cage. Chains of light bound her wrists. They didn't bite or bruise, but they pulsed with quiet power. She could feel the mark beneath her skin responding to them, like the two were speaking in a language older than magic itself. She sat up, heart racing, the air heavy with the scent of polished wood, herbs, and faint smoke. Outside, she could hear the echo of footsteps, the hum of voices. The palace was awake. A woman in silver robes entered, carrying a bowl of water and a folded gown. "The king commands that you be made presentable," she said, voice calm but distant, as if she were reciting lines from a script she'd repeated many times before. Elara's fingers curled into fists. "Tell your king I'm not one of his court toys." The woman's eyes flicked up, pale and unreadable. Defiance is admired here, until it isn't. When the woman left, Elara stood, testing the chains. They dissolved the instant she touched them, vanishing like mist. She blinked, startled. They weren't to imprison her, they were to test her obedience. The realization sent heat up her spine. She crossed to the window. Below, the palace spread out like a gilded labyrinth. Courtyards lined with marble statues, soldiers training in the morning light, servants scurrying like bees. Beyond that, the wild border of the silver veil shimmered faintly, an endless wall of mist at the edge of the kingdom. The door opened. She didn't turn. She didn't need to. The air itself changed. "Trying to run already?" His voice was smooth, low, almost lazy. Ronan Vale leaned against the doorway, dressed not in armor but in black and gold. The morning sun cut across his features, softening nothing. Power clung to him like a shadow. His gaze swept the room, then found her, steady and sharp. "If you plan to jump," he added, "the ground is very far down. I'd hate to scrape my Omega off the courtyard stones." "I'm not your Omega," she said without looking at him. He moved closer, slow and deliberate, like a predator testing how close it could come before the prey bolted. "The mark disagrees." Her jaw tightened. "Then maybe your mark is wrong." Ronan stopped behind her, his presence brushing the air like heat. The moon doesn't make mistakes, Elara Wyn. But it does enjoy a challenge. She turned then, meeting his gaze head-on. For a moment neither spoke. The silence stretched taut, charged. His eyes were colder than she remembered, and yet, when they rested on her face, there was something human beneath the frost. Something weary. "What do you want from me?" she asked. He studied her, then said simply, "Truth." "Truth." He stepped closer. "You hid your scent for months. You knew how to do it well. That takes knowledge. Who taught you?" "No one," she lied. "I'm a healer. I read." "You read," he repeated softly, as if tasting the word. "Most healers don't read ancient rune lore." She bit back a retort. His voice wasn't cruel, it was curious, almost careful. That unnerved her more than his anger. "Fine," she said, turning away. "You've got your truth. Now let me go." Ronan's reply came quiet, almost regretful. "You think I keep you here because I enjoy it?" She laughed bitterly. "You mean to tell me I'm not your prisoner?" "You're alive, aren't you?" he said, his voice low, dangerous. "You should ask the others what that's worth." Her blood ran cold. "The others?" He didn't answer. His jaw clenched. "You'll need strength for what's coming." When he left, the golden doors shut behind him with a sound that echoed like thunder. Elara sank to the floor, shaking. She told herself it was rage, but deep down there was something else, curiosity. Why would a king with the power to destroy nations sound trapped? That night, she wandered the corridors. The guards didn't stop her. They watched, but didn't move. The palace at night was a dream of mirrors and shadows. Candles burned low, their flames whispering secrets to the marble walls. She followed a faint humming, drawn like a moth. It led her to the heart of the fortress, a hall she hadn't seen before. There, a vast mural covered the ceiling, wolves chained to moons, fire and blood spilling through the sky. Beneath it stood a stone altar carved with runes that pulsed faintly in the dark. "Elara!" She jumped. Ronan stood at the edge of the light, bare-armed, eyes unreadable. "You shouldn't be here." "But, because I might see what you're hiding." He walked closer, slow, every step deliberate. "Because the curse doesn't like to be watched." "Curse?" He stopped beside the altar. His hand brushed the carvings, and the symbols flared bright, as if alive. "This kingdom was built on a promise," he said quietly. "Every Alpha King must guard the moon's bond. Break it, and the moon breaks us in return." She stared. "You mean, your bloodline is bound by magic?" Ronan's eyes met hers. "Bound by madness." For a heartbeat, neither spoke. Then she saw it, the faint tremor in his hand, the shadow behind his strength. It wasn't just arrogance that ruled him. It was fear. "How long has it been happening?" she asked softly. "Long enough to forget what silence feels like." Something in his voice cracked her anger. Not enough to forgive him, but enough to see the man beneath the crown. "You could stop it," she said, "if you trusted someone." Trust. He gave a small, humorless laugh. That word doesn't exist here. And yet, when he looked at her, she knew he wanted to believe it could. The air between them thickened. Her heart pounded, traitorous. She stepped back, but he mirrored her, the space shrinking, the heat rising. "I don't want your mark," she whispered. He tilted his head, voice barely a breath. "Then survive it." For a moment, she thought he'd touch her. He didn't. He turned away, the runes dimming as he left the hall. The doors closed, and she was alone with the silence. But that silence wasn't empty. It hummed with the echo of something awakening. Something ancient. And as she stood beneath the mural of chained wolves and burning skies, Elara realized the truth Ronan would not say aloud. The curse was not just his. It was already reaching for her. The next dawn came cloaked in thunder. Elara hadn't slept. The memory of the runes glowing under Ronan's hand haunted her long after he left. She'd seen the way his eyes flickered, not with cruelty, but with exhaustion so deep it looked carved into his bones. Still, she reminded herself he was the Alpha King, and she was his prisoner. Compassion would be a luxury she could not afford. By the time the first bell of morning rang, her decision was made. She would escape, no matter the cost. The palace was quieter than usual. A storm was brewing outside. Even the guards kept to the corridors, muttering about bad omens. Elara used it. She'd memorized the patrol patterns, every echo in the halls, every door that groaned when it opened. She slipped into a servant's passage and descended into the belly of the fortress. The scent of damp stone filled her lungs. Torches flickered against walls covered in strange carvings, wolves howling into spirals of mist. She followed the corridor until it opened into a tunnel that breathed cold air from the mountains beyond. The exit. Freedom. She hesitated only once, glancing back. Somewhere high above, Ronan Vale was probably pacing, issuing commands, expecting obedience. He would not find it in her. She turned and ran. The tunnel spat her out into the forest, wild and wet with rain. Trees loomed tall as towers, their roots twisted like veins. The storm broke, and the sky poured down silver. She didn't stop. Mud splashed up her legs, branches tore at her clothes, and still she ran. But the deeper she went, the stranger the air became. The rain thinned into mist, heavy, glimmering, alive. It clung to her skin, humming faintly. The silver veil. She'd heard the stories, a cursed border that devoured those who crossed it. No one had ever returned. Elara's breath came in gasps. Better lost than caged, she whispered, stepping into the fog. The world shifted. The forest went silent. No wind. No birds. Only the thud of her heart. At first she thought it was her imagination, the flicker of movement at the edge of her vision. Then she heard it, a low, guttural growl that didn't belong to any living beast. The mist thickened, twisting into shapes, eyes without bodies, teeth without faces. She stumbled backward, pulse screaming. No! The shadows lunged. Claws tore through the air, raking across her arm. Pain seared hot and bright. She fell, rolling in the mud, reaching for anything to defend herself. The mist pulsed around her like laughter. Another strike. Another flash of teeth. Elara screamed, hurling a handful of crushed herbs she'd kept hidden in her pouch. The powder exploded in green sparks, burning the nearest creature into smoke. But there were too many. They circled her, closing in. Her body gave out. She dropped to her knees, breath ragged, vision swimming. The last thing she saw was a pair of golden eyes cutting through the fog. And then the world went dark. When she woke, there was a firelight, warmth, the scent of pine smoke and rain. She blinked, disoriented. Her arm burned, bandaged in clean linen. She wasn't dead. A shadow moved beside the fire. Ronan. He sat on a fallen tree, drenched from the storm, blood streaking down his shoulder. The sight of him hit her like a blow. He wasn't wearing his crown, nor his armor, just a loose shirt torn at the collar, skin slick with rain and sweat. His eyes, bright as molten gold, were fixed on the fire. "You should have died," he said quietly without looking at her. "Maybe I wanted to." Her voice came out hoarse. He turned then, gaze sharp. "Don't ever say that again." She stared at him, heart pounding. "You? How did you find me?" "I didn't," he said. "The bond did." Her pulse stuttered. "The mark." "It called to me," he said, eyes flickering to her neck. "You crossed the silver veil. You should have been torn apart. But he hesitated. "It protected you." She shook her head. "That's impossible. I've lived long enough to know nothing about this curse is impossible." He rose, walking toward her. Every step made the firelight tremble. "Why did you run?" She lifted her chin. "Because I won't live as someone's property." His jaw tightened. "You think I see you as property? I think you don't know how not to." The air between them crackled, thick with unspoken things. He crouched before her, his gaze a storm barely held in check. "I marked you to save your life," he said. "That night if I hadn't." "You would have killed me?" she shot back. He went still. The fire hissed. "Yes," he said finally. "The curse demands blood when the moon calls. I fought it. I barely won." Elara stared at him. Beneath the cold command of a king, she saw the truth. He was fighting something he could not control, something that frightened even him. "Then why save me now?" she asked softly. Ronan's eyes met hers. For a heartbeat, all the armor fell away. "Because when I saw you fall, the curse went silent." Silence pressed between them, hot and breathless. Her heartbeat matched his, wild and traitorous. The rain outside slowed, turning to a soft silver drizzle. He reached out, brushing a strand of wet hair from her face. His fingers lingered, just long enough for her to feel the heat beneath his touch. "You should rest," he murmured. "You've lost too much blood." "I'm not weak," she said, though her voice trembled. "I know," he said. "That's the problem." He turned away, tossing another log into the fire. But Elara could still feel the pull, an invisible thread between them, thrumming with something alive, something dangerous. The mark beneath her skin burned softly in answer. When she finally lay back, the forest lulled into quiet. She thought she'd sleep. She didn't. Every breath he took nearby echoed in her mind. Every shift of his body made her heart trip. Outside, the moon climbed high, cold and watching. Its light slipped through the mist, turning everything silver. Ronan stood beneath it, staring into the veil as though it whispered to him alone. "What are you thinking?" she asked quietly. He didn't look at her. "That I can't keep you here," he said. "But I can't let you go either." And for the first time, she heard something like fear in his voice. Not for himself, for her. The fire crackled softly. The bond pulsed between them, faint but real. She didn't want it. She didn't choose it. But it was there, growing, spreading through her veins like moonlight. Ronan turned at last, his expression unreadable. "Sleep, Elara. Tomorrow, the court will smell your escape, and they will come for you." "And you?" she asked. "I'll be the one standing in their way." The storm had passed. The silver veil still shimmered beyond the trees, alive and waiting. But inside the small circle of firelight, two enemies sat in silence, bound by something neither could name, something older than fate itself. And though Elara closed her eyes, she knew the truth had already taken root. The Alpha King was no longer her captor. He was her curse, and her only salvation. Dawn broke pale and uneasy. The forest was still slick from the night's rain, and a thin mist hung low between the trees like the remnants of a dream refusing to die. Elara woke to the soft crackle of dying embers and the rustle of movement nearby. For a moment she forgot where she was, the wild scent of pine, the ache in her arm, the faint warmth still clinging to her skin where Ronan had touched her. Then it returned all at once, the silver veil, the beasts, the firelight, and the man who had saved her life. Ronan stood a few paces away, shirt damp, hair dark with rain, his back turned as he sharpened his blade. He looked carved from the same iron that forged the moon. There was no crown here, no throne, only a man too strong for his own sorrow. "You should eat," he said without turning. "I'd rather go home," she replied, her voice rough but steady. He paused at that, blade stilling mid-motion. "Home." His tone was unreadable. "The palace is your home now." "It's a prison," she shot back. "A gilded cage is still a cage." He slid the knife back into its sheath and finally faced her. His eyes, bright as molten gold, met hers without flinching. "You think I built that palace for pleasure? I think you built it to hide whatever haunts you." Something flickered in his gaze, a shadow quick and sharp. "You don't know what haunts me." "Then tell me," she said. "Because whatever it is, it's eating you alive." Silence fell between them. The forest seemed to hold its breath. Then, slowly, Ronan walked to her and sank to one knee beside the fire. The flames caught the edge of his jaw, throwing gold across the hard lines of his face. "You want truth?" he asked quietly. "Fine." He drew a small dagger from his belt, the blade black as night. Without warning, he slashed it across his palm. Elara gasped, reaching for him, but he caught her wrist before she could move. "Watch," he whispered. The blood that spilled wasn't red. It shimmered silver under the light, curling like smoke before vanishing into the air. The wound closed almost instantly. Elara's heart lurched. "What are you?" "Cursed," he said simply. "Every Alpha King of my bloodline is bound to the moon's vow." The first king swore to protect her favor. When he broke that promise, when he killed the mate she had chosen for him, the moon cursed us all. Now, with every blood moon, the curse awakens. He stared at his hand, flexing it slowly as if it still ached. It takes hold of the Alpha King's mind, drives him to madness. He turns on his own heart, on the one he loves most, and destroys her. When dawn comes, he remembers everything. The fire hissed softly, the only sound between them. Elara's chest tightened. "That's why you marked me," she murmured. "To protect me from yourself." Ronan's jaw clenched. The mark dulls the curse's reach. But it won't hold forever. Every mark burns out. Her throat went dry. "And when it does?" His eyes lifted to hers. "Then you'll die by my hands." The words hung there, heavy as iron. For the first time, she saw it clearly, the quiet torment behind his cruelty. The endless loop of love and ruin he had been forced to live. And suddenly, her anger cracked at the edges. She rose slowly, crossing the space between them. "You've carried this alone for years," she said softly. He looked up at her, expression unreadable. "Who else could bear it? Maybe someone who still believes you're worth saving." He laughed, low and bitter. "You don't know what you're saying." "I know pain when I see it," she said. "I've lived it." Something in him broke then, not fully but enough that the mask slipped. His hand came up, fingers brushing her cheek with a tenderness that didn't belong to a king or a curse. "You should hate me," he murmured. "Maybe I do," she whispered. "But I don't fear you." His breath hitched, a soft sound swallowed by the wind. For a moment, the world felt suspended. No crown, no chains, no curse. Just two souls circling something they couldn't name. Then the wind changed. The scent of smoke drifted through the trees. Ronan stiffened, head turning sharply. "We need to move." "What is it?" He listened, muscles tensing. "Trouble." They packed quickly, though Elara's arm throbbed with pain. By the time they reached the palace ridge, the sun was bleeding into the horizon, and below them, the world burned. Flames licked the lower courtyards, smoke twisting into the sky. The banners of the royal guard were torn down, replaced by crude symbols painted in blood. A rebellion. Elara's stomach turned. Who would dare? "The council," Ronan cut in, eyes dark. "They've been waiting for weakness. Saving you gave them reason to move." "You're blaming me for this?" "I'm blaming myself for not killing them first." He strode ahead, fury radiating off him like heat. The guards at the outer gate bowed hastily, fear etched across their faces. Inside, chaos reigned, soldiers clashing, servants fleeing, blood staining the marble floors. Ronan moved through it like a storm unleashed. Every strike was precise, lethal. His eyes glowed bright gold, the alpha power rising through his veins. But beneath that fury, Elara saw something else, an edge of desperation. The curse was stirring. She caught up to him near the grand hall. "Ronan, stop. You're losing control." "Stay behind me," he snarled, voice raw. "No. You said the curse feeds on blood. Then stop feeding it." He turned, eyes blazing, and for an instant she saw it, the silver threads of the curse, snaking under his skin like veins of moonlight. His breath came in ragged bursts, his pupils blown wide. "Get away from me, Elara," he hissed. "Now. I'm not leaving you." His teeth clenched. The air rippled with power, and the runes on the walls flared to life, reacting to his loss of control. Elara stepped forward anyway, her voice low but fierce. "Look at me. You're not the curse. You're still in there, fight it." He grabbed her wrist hard enough to hurt, and for a heartbeat, she thought he'd strike her. But then his grip trembled. His breath shuddered out. Slowly, painfully, he let go. The light faded. The runes dimmed. The silence that followed was unbearable. Ronan sank to his knees, shaking. "You don't understand," he whispered. "It's not just a curse, it's hunger. It wants you. Every part of you." Elara knelt beside him, resting her hand on his arm. "Then let it starve." He looked at her, something fragile breaking open behind his eyes. "You'll be the death of me." "Maybe," she said softly. "But not tonight." Outside, the battle raged on, the sound of rebellion crashing against the walls like thunder. But inside that blood-stained hall, an Alpha King bowed his head to the only person who had ever dared to touch the part of him that still hoped. And though neither of them said it aloud, both knew the truth that was coming. The next blood moon was already rising, and when it did, love would no longer be enough to save them. The fires from the rebellion burned for 3 days. Smoke veiled the moon like a mourning shroud, and the once gilded spires of the moon court stood blackened with ash. Ronan soldiers fought tooth and claw to reclaim the palace, but treachery spread deeper than steel could cut. Servants whispered of a prophecy stirring, of the moon choosing a new heir, an omega with fire in her veins. Elara had not slept. She moved through the corridors like a ghost, binding wounds, commanding healers, and ignoring the way the guards now bowed when she passed. They didn't see a prisoner anymore. They saw something else, something neither mortal nor tame. It was the eve of the lunar festival. Once, it had been a celebration of peace, a night when Alpha and Omega gathered under the moon's blessing. Now, the palace prepared for it like an execution. Ronan stood in the great hall, armor dark as obsidian, the glow of the moon spilling across his shoulders. He looked like a god carved from fury. "They'll come for us tonight," he said, voice low. "The council won't wait. They'll use the festival to finish what they started." "Then let them," Elara replied, stepping closer. "I'm done running." He turned to her. "You're still recovering. You shouldn't." "I shouldn't what?" she cut in. "Fight for the kingdom I've been forced to serve? For the people you've bled for?" His jaw tightened. "You don't owe this realm anything." "I owe it to myself," she said softly. "Because if I'm to survive your curse, I won't do it hiding behind your shadow." Her words struck something in him, anger, pride, fear, she couldn't tell. But instead of answering, he reached up and unclasped the silver insignia from his armor, pressing it into her palm. It bore the sigil of the moon's crest. "Then stand beside me," he said. "Not as my prisoner. As my equal." The hall doors opened. A guard rushed in, breathless. "Your Majesty, the council has gathered. They demand your abdication before moonrise." Ronan's gaze hardened. "Then the moon will bear witness to their folly." By the time the moon rose, the palace was bathed in silver light. The courtyards, once filled with music and dance, now echoed with tension. The nobles assembled in their ceremonial silks, but beneath the sheen, every gaze carried suspicion. At the center stood the moonfire brazier, an ancient relic said to ignite only for those touched by the moon's will. Its silver flames flickered weakly, struggling against the chill that crept through the air. The council elder stepped forward, his robes trailing like shadows. "Your Majesty," he began, voice slick with false reverence, "the moon's blessing no longer favors your line. You've defied her order, consorted with an unmarked Omega, and brought war upon your own kin." Ronan's eyes burned gold. "Careful, elder. The moon listens when you lie in her name." "She listens," the elder sneered, "and she chooses anew." Before Ronan could move, a dozen soldiers poured in from the side gates, his own men, bearing the council's crest. Betrayal struck fast. Steel clashed, chaos ignited, and within moments, the festival of peace became a battlefield. Elara darted between fallen bodies, her healer's robes soaked with blood. Every cry tore through her chest, every wound felt like her own. She reached for her satchel and froze. The brazier, its silver fire had flared, no call to her. The flames bent toward her as if pulled by some unseen thread. And deep within her chest, something ancient stirred. Elara! Ronan roared from across the courtyard, his sword cleaving through attackers. Stay back! But the fire was already answering her. A surge of heat raced through her veins. The air shimmered around her, silver threads spiraling from her skin. Her scent, once masked and hidden, unfurled in a rush of wild moonlight. Every alpha in the courtyard staggered. Even Ronan froze, eyes wide. It wasn't just Omega power. It was older, pure. The flames leapt higher, swirling around her in a crown of silver and blue. Her voice came out strange and resonant, layered with something not entirely mortal. The moon does not choose by fear or by crown, she said, though she didn't remember choosing the words. She chooses by truth. Ronan stepped closer, awe and terror warring in his gaze. Elara, what are you? The elder's scream broke through the silence. She's a heretic. An abomination. He raised his staff, sending a shockwave of dark magic hurtling toward her. It struck, but the fire caught it midair and devoured it whole. The courtyard lit up like dawn. When the light faded, the elder lay motionless, and Elara stood at the brazier's heart, untouched. Her heartbeat thundered. She could feel every soul in the courtyard, every life, every fear. And beneath it all, a voice whispered through her blood, old and familiar. Daughter of the moon. Heir of the first Omega Queen. The truth hit her like lightning. That was her lineage, the secret her mother had died protecting. Ronan approached slowly, his weapon lowered. The curse, it's tied to your bloodline. She looked at him, breath trembling. You mean, you're not just my fated mate, he said, voice hoarse. You're the key. The moon cursed my line, but she left your blood as the only light strong enough to break it. Her power pulsed again, the silver glow rippling through the air. If that's true, she whispered, then breaking it will kill one of us. He closed the distance between them. Then we'll find another way. You don't believe that? No, he said, cupping her face with blood-stained hands. But I'd rather burn beside you than live another night cursed. The flames reflected in his eyes, twin mirrors of devotion and doom. Around them, the courtyard was chaos, soldiers clashing, fire rising, the moon itself glowing crimson at its edges. But at that moment, everything slowed down. Elara could feel it, the bond between them shifting, tightening, rewriting the curse in real time. Her power reached for him, not to destroy, but to heal. And the curse fought back, roaring like a beast cornered. Pain ripped through her chest. Ronan's grip faltered, but he didn't let go. Stay with me, he growled through clenched teeth. Don't you dare stop. The moon blazed above them, full and merciless. The flames swallowed them both in a pillar of silver light. When it finally dimmed, the courtyard had fallen silent. Elara collapsed into his arms, her glow fading. Did it work? She rasped. Ronan looked down at her, and for the first time in his life, the curse wasn't in his eyes. The veins of silver had vanished. The madness had gone. But so had her strength. He caught her face between his hands, shaking. Elara, look at me. Don't you fade. She smiled faintly. You said you'd rather burn beside me. Don't, he choked out. Don't finish that. Her lashes fluttered. Then hold me until dawn. And as the first light crept over the ruins of the moon court, the Alpha King held the woman who had freed him, half prayer, half promise, while the realm whispered her name like a legend reborn. Elara Wyn, the fireborn Omega, the last heir of the Moon Queen, and the only one who could save, or destroy, the world he died to protect. The dawn after the lunar festival was the quietest the realm had ever known. Ash drifted over the courtyards like pale snow, settling on the broken banners of the moon court. The rebellion had fallen silent, its leaders scattered, its soldiers dead or fled, but peace did not feel like victory. It felt like the pause between two storms. Ronan stood at the highest balcony, his armor gone, his body wrapped in a loose black cloak. The morning wind stirred his hair as he watched the first light break over the horizon. Somewhere below, healers moved among the wounded. But his eyes sought only one thing: Elara. She had not woken since the fire trial. The healers had done everything: burned sage, whispered prayers, even called on the old rites of the moon. But her pulse beat faintly, as if her soul was still walking the border between life and death. Ronan turned as the doors opened. A healer bowed low, his face pale. "Your Majesty, she's stirring." The words hit him like air to drowning lungs. He didn't wait for formality. He was already running before the healer finished speaking. Elara woke to the taste of metal and smoke on her tongue. The ceiling above her was carved with runes, old, powerful, shimmering faintly with moonlight. Her body ached, but the pain felt distant, like it belonged to someone else. When she tried to sit up, a firm hand pressed against her shoulder. "You shouldn't move," Ronan said. His voice was low, rough from days without sleep. She blinked until his face came into focus. The shadows beneath his eyes, the unshaven edge of his jaw, the quiet storm in his gaze. "You look worse than I feel," she murmured. He huffed something that wasn't quite a laugh. "You almost died, Elara." "Almost," she whispered. "But not quite." His jaw clenched. "You broke the curse." She searched his face. "Then why do you look like a man still haunted?" He hesitated, his hand falling away from her shoulder. "Because the curse is gone, but it left a stain. I can feel it, like ashes beneath my skin. And I can't bear the thought that it cost you your life." Her lips curved faintly. "You forget I'm hard to kill. Don't make jokes about this." "I'm not." She turned her gaze toward the moonlight filtering through the window. "But I didn't free you to watch you drown in guilt. The moon didn't curse you to die. We were both meant to find each other in that fire. Maybe that was the point all along." He stared at her for a long time, then looked away. "If that's true, then what happens now?" "I leave," she said simply. His head snapped back toward her. "No." "Yes." "Elara, don't." "I made a bargain," she interrupted softly. "My freedom in exchange for my help. The curse is broken. You're free. Now I want mine." Ronan went still. His voice, when it came, was low and dangerous. "You think I'll just let you walk away? You don't own me, Ronan." He stepped closer, eyes burning. "No. But the moment you marked my soul with that fire, something inside me changed. If you walk out of this palace, I'll feel it. I'll know it. And I swear it will kill me." The room thickened with silence. Elara's heart ached at the raw truth in his voice. He wasn't commanding her. He was confessing. "You can't build a kingdom on chains," she said. "Not even the ones forged by love." He flinched as if struck. "Then tell me what I can offer that's enough to make you stay." She looked at him then. The Alpha King who had burned for her, the man who had nearly destroyed himself trying to protect her. Her chest tightened. "Let me go. Let me find who I am without your shadow following me. Then if I come back, it'll be because I chose to." Ronan's voice cracked. "And if you don't?" "Then you'll still be free," she whispered. He said nothing after that. Only turned away, the weight of his silence heavier than iron. The journey began 3 nights later. Elara stood at the edge of the moon court's gates, wrapped in a cloak of silver thread. The forest stretched before her, vast and dark and humming with the life of old magic. Ronan was there too, silent beside his horse. He handed her a pendant, a crescent moon carved from obsidian. "It will call me if you're in danger," he said quietly. She took it, fingers brushing his. The touch burned. "You won't come," she said softly. "You don't know me." "I do," she whispered. "Too well." And then she turned, walking into the mist before she could change her mind. For weeks, she traveled through lands long forgotten, ruined temples, haunted springs, valleys where the wind still whispered in the language of the moon. She learned more about her lineage with every step. The Fireborn Omegas had been the moon's chosen, bound to balance power and mercy. Her blood carried their legacy. Her power was not just fire, it was life reborn from ruin. But the deeper she went, the louder the call inside her chest became. It wasn't painful. It wasn't longing. It was him. Ronan. She could feel him through the bond, faint as a heartbeat echoing across miles. Sometimes, in the stillness of dusk, she could almost hear his voice, ragged, whispering her name like a prayer he couldn't stop saying. And when she reached the sacred ruins of the Vale, she finally understood why the bond hadn't broken. The curse had been undone, yes, but the moon had bound their souls in its place. A different kind of tie. One born of choice, not blood. If she broke it now, it would kill them both. That night, under the ruins of the shattered temple, Elara lit a fire. The air shimmered with power. "You can come out," she said. From the shadows, Ronan stepped forward. He looked different now, worn, older, but his eyes burned with the same golden fire. "You knew I'd follow. I counted on it." He stopped a few feet away. "You shouldn't have run from me." "I didn't run," she said. "I led you here." He frowned. "Why?" She touched the runes carved into the stones. "Because this is where it ends, or begins again. The moon's bond can't be undone, but it can be balanced." Ronan's jaw tightened. "Balanced how?" "By choice," she said. "If you stay bound to me, it will destroy us both eventually. But if we complete the ritual here, we can share the bond equally. No Alpha, no Omega. Just two souls." He stepped closer, eyes searching hers. "You're asking me to give up the last of my power." "I'm asking you to trust me." He studied her for a long time. Then, slowly he nodded. They knelt across from each other, palms touching, the fire between them blazing higher. Moonlight poured through the broken ceiling, bathing them in silver. The air hummed with ancient rhythm. Elara whispered the words that came to her from somewhere deep inside her blood, an old prayer of balance. "I am not your chain," she breathed. "And I am not your crown," Ronan answered. Their hands clasped tighter. The fire roared, spiraling around them both. For a heartbeat, everything went still. Then the light split into two, half gold, half silver, and sank into their skin. When it was over, Elara gasped. She could still feel him, but it wasn't suffocating anymore. It was steady, equal. Ronan reached for her, his touch trembling. "What did you do?" "I set us free." He looked at her as though seeing her for the first time, not as an Omega, not as the woman who saved him, but as something larger. His voice was soft when he spoke. "You're my freedom, Elara." "And you're my choice," she said. The night wind swept through the ruins, scattering ashes, carrying the scent of new beginnings. And somewhere deep in the forest, the moon shone brighter than it had in centuries, watching over two souls who had finally learned that love was not the cage, but the key. The sky was the color of a wound when the blood moon rose. Red light bled over the mountains, drenching the forests, spilling down the ruins like liquid fire. Even the air felt alive, heavy, trembling, electric. Every creature in the realm went silent. The last blood moon had come. Elara felt it before she saw it. The pull in her chest. The ache that wasn't hers alone. She was standing at the edge of the Vale, her fingers pressed against the ancient stones still glowing faintly from the ritual that bound her and Ronan as equals. But now those same runes pulsed faster, brighter, like a heartbeat out of rhythm. He was coming. Ronan emerged from the forest, his cloak torn, his armor glinting under the red sky. His golden eyes caught the moonlight and flickered with something darker. Fear, maybe. Or resolve. It's begun, she whispered. He nodded once. The curse isn't gone. It only slept. And now it wants what it was denied. His voice was low, rough. A sacrifice. Elara turned toward him, searching his face. Then it will take me. No, the word tore from him before she even finished. He closed the distance between them, hands gripping her shoulders. Don't ever say that again. Ronan, you think I endured centuries of blood and madness just to lose you now? Not this time. Her throat tightened. You can't fight the moon's will. He stared down at her, his gaze fierce and tender all at once. Then I'll fight the gods themselves. By nightfall, the veil trembled. The blood moon had reached its peak, flooding the world in crimson light. Every rune, every whisper of ancient power, came alive around them. And from the center of the temple ruins, a voice rose, a chorus of echoes, neither male nor female, heavy with divine wrath. Ronan Vale, it thundered, shaking the ground beneath their feet. Your bloodline defied the covenant. Your curse remains unpaid. Choose, the crown, or the heart that broke your chains. Elara's pulse roared in her ears. She stepped forward, chin raised. Take me, she said into the crimson air. I am of the moon's blood. My life will end the curse. Ronan's growl split the silence. No! His power surged outward, cracking the stones under his boots. You will not touch her. The wind howled, carrying the gods' laughter. You cannot defy destiny, Alpha King. The curse was woven in your veins long before her birth. Ronan's hands balled into fists. Then unweave it. Take me instead. Take my crown, my name, my life. Elara grabbed his wrist, desperate. You don't understand. If the moon takes your crown, your realm falls. The people will rebuild, he said fiercely. But I can't rebuild without you. The red light brightened until the air burned. Elara's breath came shallow. She could feel the pull of the curse inside her, coiling, hungering. It's choosing, she whispered. Ronan turned to her, cupping her face. Then I'll choose first. Before she could stop him, he pressed his forehead to hers and whispered words in the old tongue, the vow of the first kings. Power surged between them, ancient and alive. The bond that had once bound them as equals now flared, brighter than ever, laced with defiance. Ronan, what are you doing? She gasped. Ending it. The air cracked open like thunder. The gods' voices rose again, furious now. You dare defy the moon's command? Ronan lifted his head, eyes blazing gold against the crimson sky. You cursed my line to madness. You fed on our suffering. But not anymore. I am done kneeling. He raised his hands, and for the first time in centuries, the moonfire obeyed in Alpha's will. It erupted from his palms in molten streams, spiraling toward the heavens. The temple shook as divine power met mortal fury. Elara staggered back, shielding her eyes. Ronan, stop. You'll burn yourself alive. He smiled through the blaze, wild and beautiful. Then I'll burn with purpose. The fire roared, twisting into the shape of wings. From the smoke, figures began to form, phantoms of the ancient gods who had cursed his bloodline. Their faces were carved from moonlight and shadow, their voices like knives. You cannot destroy us. I don't need to, Ronan said. I only need to break what you control. He turned then, toward Elara. Their bond pulsed, alive and fragile, a thread stretched between life and death. You once gave me freedom, he said softly. Now I give it back to you. No, don't you dare, she said, shaking her head. You break this bond and you'll die. Maybe, he said, but at least you'll live. Tears stung her eyes. Don't you see? I don't want to live without you. The gods' laughter rose, cruel and echoing. Love cannot change the moon's will. Elara's grief snapped into fury. Then maybe it can change mine. She reached for Ronan, gripping his hands in hers. Their powers collided, his moonfire, her life flame, two halves of the same curse. The temple burst into blinding light. Together, she said. He shook his head, tears cutting through the soot on his cheeks. Elara. Together, she repeated, voice steady now, strong enough to drown out the gods themselves. Their power merged. Silver and gold flames intertwined, rising higher, faster, until even the moon seemed to shudder. The gods screamed, thousands of voices unraveling at once, as the bond between Alpha and Omega became something greater, a fusion of will, of love, of defiance strong enough to rewrite fate itself. Then, silence. The light dimmed. The ruins lay still. The blood moon cracked like glass, shattering into silver fragments that drifted down like falling stars. Ronan knelt amid the ashes, breathing hard. The runes around him had gone dark. Elara lay limp in his arms. For a terrible moment, there was nothing. No heartbeat. No breath. "Please," he whispered. "Not her. Take everything else, but not her." And then, a tremor. A breath. Her eyes opened, glowing faintly silver. "The curse," she murmured. He laughed, choking on relief. "Gone." She smiled weakly. "You did it." "No," he said, brushing a tear from her cheek. "We did." Above them, the last remnants of the blood moon faded, giving way to pale dawn. The temple ruins glimmered with quiet peace. The gods were gone. The curse was broken. But Ronan's crown lay shattered beside them, its metal melted to ash. He looked at it, then at her. "The realm will need a new king." Elara's fingers intertwined with his. "Then let them choose one born from love, not power." He smiled faintly. "That sounds like treason." She leaned her head against his chest. "Then let's be treasonous together." And as the first light of morning poured through the ruins, Ronan Vale, the last cursed Alpha King, held the woman who had rewritten destiny itself. The world had been reborn, washed clean in fire and blood and love strong enough to defy gods. But the moon still watched. And somewhere beyond the veil of dawn, her voice whispered one final truth. Freedom is never given. It is chosen. The first light of dawn spilled across the ruins, turning the world to gold. Smoke curled lazily from the scorched stones of the moon temple, and the last whisper of divine fire still shimmered faintly in the air. The blood moon was gone. The curse was gone. But so was the kingdom they had known. Elara stirred against Ronan's chest, her body weak, her breath shallow but alive. The soft rise and fall of her ribs was the only proof he needed that everything he had sacrificed had been worth it. For the first time in centuries, silence didn't feel like the calm before the storm. It felt like peace. He exhaled slowly, brushing a strand of soot-blackened hair from her face. Her eyes fluttered open, catching the morning light like drops of honey. "Ronan," her voice was soft, threaded with disbelief. "You're still here." A faint smile curved his lips. "So are you." Her hand lifted to touch his face, fingers tracing the streak of ash that ran along his jaw. "The curse." "Gone," he said quietly. "Completely." She let out a shaky laugh that turned to a sob. "You gave up your power." "I gave up my crown," he corrected, voice low. "Power never mattered. Not when it comes to you." She looked around then, at the ruined pillars, the fallen banners, the once mighty sigil of the Alpha King now fractured and burning at their feet. The world they'd both known had collapsed. And yet, she'd never seen anything so beautiful. Ronan helped her sit up, steadying her with an arm around her waist. His hands trembled slightly, not from weakness, but from the echo of power that had been ripped from him when the curse shattered. He was still strong, still formidable, but the god-touched energy that once defined him was gone. He was mortal now, human almost. "Does it hurt?" she asked quietly. He shook his head. "Feels lighter, like I've been carrying a mountain and finally set it down." Elara smiled faintly, though her eyes shimmered. "The realm will feel that loss too. They'll look for their king. Then they'll have to find a new one," he said, glancing toward the horizon. "Someone who can rule without fear, without curses or crowns made of blood." She studied him, her heart aching at the quiet conviction in his tone. "You could rebuild, Ronan. You could still be that king." He met her gaze then, and there was no hesitation in his eyes. "No. That chapter ends here." She swallowed. "And what of me?" For a long moment he said nothing. The wind stirred the ashes, lifting flecks of silver and gold around them like falling starlight. Finally, he said, "You're free, Elara. Truly free. No bonds. No vows. No cage." The words cut through her like a blade, because she'd dreamed of hearing them, yearned for them, but now that freedom was within reach, it felt hollow. She turned her face toward the sunrise, her expression unreadable. "I thought freedom would feel different." "It will," he said softly, "when you find where you're meant to go." "And where are you meant to go?" she asked, meeting his gaze again. Ronan hesitated, his jaw tightening. "Wherever the world needs rebuilding. Maybe I'll start with the ruins of my own making." She studied him for a moment, the man who had once been feared as the Alpha King, now stripped of all divine power, his strength no longer in command or conquest but in his choice to let go. There was something achingly human in him now. And something beautiful. "Do you regret it?" she asked finally. He shook his head. "Not once." She looked down, her hands twisting in her lap. "You could have let me go long ago." "Why didn't you?" "Because I thought loving you was the curse," he said quietly. "But it was the only part that was ever real." Elara's breath caught. She had no words, only the quiet thunder of her heart as the morning wind wrapped around them. By mid-morning, the remnants of the moon court began to gather at the foot of the ruined temple. Warriors, healers, omegas and betas alike. Some wounded, some weary, all stunned by the storm that had passed. They looked to Ronan for answers, but when he descended the temple steps, he carried no crown, no scepter. Only a woman's hand in his. The people fell silent as he stood before them, the sunlight cutting through the lingering smoke. His voice carried easily, steady and unyielding. "The curse is broken," he said. "The gods are gone. The bond that chained this kingdom in fear has been severed." A murmur rippled through the crowd, half awe, half disbelief. Ronan continued, "I will not be your king any longer. The moonfire that made me Alpha has burned out. What remains of me is just a man." A healer in the front called out, "Then who will lead us?" Ronan looked to Elara. She stood a few paces behind him, her cloak torn, her hair tangled, her eyes alight with quiet fire. The sight of her stirred something deep in the crowd, recognition, reverence. "She will," Ronan said. Elara froze. "Ronan." He turned to her, smiling faintly. "You healed what power destroyed. You faced the gods without a crown to protect you. The realm doesn't need an Alpha King anymore. It needs the courage of an Omega Queen." The crowd stirred again, louder this time, shocked, uncertain, hopeful. Elara's throat tightened. "You can't just hand me a kingdom." "I'm not," he said gently. "I'm asking you to choose it." Her eyes flickered with emotion, fear, love, disbelief. She took a step toward him, then another, until they stood so close she could feel his breath. "And if I choose you instead?" she whispered. For a moment, time stopped. The world held its breath. Ronan's smile softened, the fire in his gaze tempered by tenderness. "Then I'd spend the rest of my life proving that freedom and love can exist in the same breath." The crowd faded from her awareness. There was only him, the man who had given up everything to save her. The man who no longer wore a crown, yet somehow ruled her heart completely. She lifted a hand to his face. "Then you'll have to start now." He leaned down, and when their lips met, the crowd did not cheer. They simply watched in reverent silence as the first light of a new age broke over the realm. Later, as the sun rose higher, Elara stood on the steps of the palace, the ruins of what once symbolized power now a monument to what they had overcome. Her heart was steady, her resolve clear. Ronan approached quietly, his hand brushing hers. "Have you decided?" She smiled faintly. "I think so." "And?" She turned to face him fully, eyes glimmering like moonlight on water. "I'll stay." He blinked, a rare flicker of surprise crossing his face. "I'll stay," she repeated, firmer now. "Not as your captive. Not even as your queen. But as your equal. We'll rebuild together." Ronan exhaled slowly, the ghost of a smile tugging at his lips. "Then we'll start at dawn." She glanced toward the rising sun. "Dawn's already here." That night, under a gentle silver moon, not a curse, but a blessing, the two of them walked through the empty halls of what had been the Alpha's palace. The shadows were soft now, not haunted. The air no longer thrummed with divine rage, but with the quiet heartbeat of a realm learning to breathe again. Ronan stopped before a shattered throne, his fingers brushing the cracked armrest. "Strange," he murmured. "I used to think this was the only way to rule." Elara stood beside him, her hand slipping into his. "Then let's build something better." He turned to her, eyes warm. "A kingdom born from love? A kingdom born from choice." The moonlight caught her hair, gilding it silver. For a moment, the world was still. Then Ronan pulled her close, his voice a whisper against her ear. "You were never meant to survive just one night in my bed, Elara Wyn. You were meant to change my world forever." She smiled through the tears that gathered in her eyes. "And you were meant to make me believe love wasn't a chain." Outside, the wind carried the scent of new beginnings. The kingdom slept in fragile peace, unaware that its rebirth had already begun, not with a coronation, but with a vow whispered between two souls who had defied gods, curses, and fate itself. The Alpha King was no more. But Ronan Vale lived, and in his arms so did hope. And when the moon rose high once more, its light no longer demanded blood. It simply blessed what remained. Two hearts. One promise. Freedom. Forever.